We good? All right. I think
Sure.
we're live. Let me just double check one more time.
Fits my ear weird. Just this ear. I
got
must
a
have
weird-
asymmetrical
Yeah,
ears.
you have a weird left ear. All right, well, welcome in. This is the Be More podcast. I am joined with Coach Kynsi, Coach Paul, Coach Kylie. Welcome in. We kind of wanted to have maybe just we just ran the Leadville Marathon for those who haven't been following all of my obnoxious posts. And yeah, we just wanted to talk about it. Turns out it's one of the hardest marathons known to man in the U.S. We had no idea. So we did it. We survived. How we feel about it?
That's a loaded question.
That's a little question. So
I feel
okay.
all the emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, so actually let's do this. I kind of got us starting from start to finish. So let's actually start with you, Kylie. Let's just say, what was the biggest takeaway from the run that you got? And this could be physically, mentally, emotionally.
Wow. That's a hard one. I had all the emotions that day and since then. But for me, I think it was just, I know we talked about this a lot leading up to, but just resilience. And obviously we talk about that a lot as a core value. But for me, like a lot of people don't know, that the struggle that I went through every single day of training was miserable for me pretty much. So to even be there and be able to do it was like a huge accomplishment for me. And so completing it and actually feeling as good as I did, I was just very proud of that. And I guess mentally it made me feel much stronger. Like I can do hard things.
Yeah, big time. Would you say, because I mean, we know that there's some CrossFit workouts that just bury you, right? I mean, I feel you and I are very similar in workout sense, and these two are very similar. Would you say that in those workouts did you think there's carryover to some of those harder workouts? Obviously mentally, but then also physically as well.
Absolutely. I think that in CrossFit, you kind of learn to not pay attention to how you're feeling sometimes. In those harder workouts, you kind of just like turn your brain off and just go. And I think a lot of the marathon was that. Like, I just didn't want to stop. I didn't want to stop moving or go slower or anything. I just wanted to keep going and just push through it. So I do think that carried over a lot.
Okay, awesome. And then what about you, Paul? What do you think your biggest takeaway was? Also, Paul is going to be running a 50K here in 6 weeks, 7 weeks?
6 weeks.
6 weeks? Nice. So, I mean, I guess, but that was even before you did the marathon, right? You decided this 50K back in April, May, I think is when you signed up for it.
Yeah, I think it was April. Signed up
April,
for it and
yeah.
got the Airbnb and everything.
Yeah. So it's official once you get the Airbnb. It's kind of like when you change your Facebook to in a relationship. It's kind of like
Done
that.
deal.
You can't change it now because everyone knows. Everyone knows. Yeah. What do you think your biggest takeaway was from the marathon? Just the marathon.
I learned I'm not as cool as I was hoping I was going to be. But more importantly, I learned that you have to do a lot more like specific training. So the uphill destroyed me, which I wasn't prepared for. We'd done a lot of like trail running, but not at that elevation or at that amount of climbing. So that destroyed me much quicker than I expected. So I got to do a whole lot more of that in preparation for the 32 mile or the 50K.
So I guess the takeaway from the run, I mean, you used it more as a training, would you say?
That was the hope.
Right? That was a hope.
Yeah.
I mean,
Didn't go that way.
well, and like, we'll kind of talk about it here in a sec about training, but I think that's the beauty of training, is it's not meant to be perfect for training. Obviously, like, this was a race for you, but it was also a training, so it might just have felt a little bit different. Like, obviously, you were maybe a little discouraged, but also, too, there's something next that you're sort of working towards where, like, say for us three, this was like one and done for us, at least for the summer, and we're just like happy it's done, and we're like, all right, let's regroup, refocus, what's our strengths, weaknesses, that sort of thing. So Was that kind of what you're thinking? Like, this is a good win, or this wasn't as good of a win, but you used it as an experience to sort of lead you into this next thing.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I definitely learned a lot in terms of trail running in general, I think, or trail racing and what I should and shouldn't do next time. So hopefully I can perform as expected.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. All right. What about you, Kyns?
I think my biggest takeaway was just to like embrace it because like obviously there were like many things that like could go as planned or didn't go as planned, but like regardless you're out there, and so like you just have to do it at that point. And so and also like we had no idea what the time was of like what we like how long we wanted to run or have the marathon take, and we like found out it was a lot longer than we thought. And so like at 6 or 7 hours, like we still had a long ways. And so at that point it's like you don't have, you know, your only choice is just to keep going. So I know in the past a lot of times I'm like, well, I wish this would have gone better, or I could have done this better or something, but like you just get over that and you're like, this is the cards I'm dealt for this day, and like this is what we're gonna do. So I think that was really cool to like get that mindset throughout the race, and then just be consistent, just keep going, and kind of like what Kylie said, just don't think about it, just do it.
Yeah, and I'd probably agree with all of you guys. You know, I think my biggest thing was, you know, and I don't know if it's because I'm of the position I'm in, but just trusting the training to get you through it. You know, so like there was never a part I wanted to quit, right? It was like we've done these hard runs, especially once we got into like our 15, 17, 20 mile runs. Like you got through that, right? Like that, like you've reached that threshold per se, and 6 miles more is obviously a little harder. But, you know, I think my biggest takeaway was just trusting your training, because all the hard work was done. So regardless of how you felt for that day, like, you know, for us personally, and I'm sure for you too, like, you know, even after we thought we were done climbing, we still had at least 1,500 or 2,000 feet of climbing. We weren't even close, you know, and you know, for us to finish the race after struggling for 24 miles for mile 25, 26, for us to be running, you know, and I think our pace ended up being an 11-minute pace. Like, that's awesome, right? And I don't know what you ended up with. I'm sure you ran through. I don't know if you know, what your pace was or whatever, but
For the last two, you know?
For the last 2 miles.
Yeah, I think last two were like 8:30s or 8:40, somewhere there.
Yeah, I mean, so to beat your body up for that point, even if the uphill killed you, like you put yourself in those positions numerous times and you trusted it. And like Kynsi made this point on the way up, she's like, the hard work's already done, and that's something that you like have to remember race day or any day like that you're performing, is you already did the work. So you got to just trust it at that point. And yeah, I guess you just can't second guess it. You know, it is what it, like Kynsi said, it is what it is at that point, you know. But it was just really cool to see. It's been a while since I've actually trained for something, so it was cool to reiterate just my belief in, like, you train for these things and they'll be a lot easier than just disappointing yourself when it doesn't go your way. You know, it's like people when they ask, hey, I haven't gotten a muscle up. Well, have you been working on muscle ups? Well, no. Okay. That's probably why you haven't gotten a muscle up, or why you haven't gotten better at pull-ups or whatever. You know what I mean? So let's start with you, Kyns. What would you say your biggest takeaway from training was? And this could be the nutrition. This could be the recovery piece. This could be the training piece itself.
I'd say just all the little details that like I had no idea about, like figuring out like the exact pair of shorts I wanted to wear, or like the sports bra I wanted to wear, because there was
it's a real thing.
Yeah, like there was a sports bra I wore for like the 17-mile one, and it ended up like rubbing my back raw and like rubbing my stomach raw. So it's like these tiny little details that like you have, like you don't think about at all, or like the chafing. So like for non-runners, like we use this stuff where it's like lotion. But
what's it called?
It's called nut butter.
And it's not actual nut butter, for the record.
Yeah, don't eat it.
Yeah, don't eat it.
Terrible on bagels.
It's terrible.
Terrible.
It does not taste like peanut butter. So anyway, like tiny details like that. And like being so dialed in with when to eat and like what to eat and how many calories to eat. And like, even if you're running and you're like not even hungry or something, like you have to eat. And the day of the race, I took like so many salt tablets, which I had never really done that. But that was like a game changer for me. So it's like these tiny little things you have to be like so dialed in on like everything. So for training, it was mainly just finding that stuff out, like finding what pack you want to wear and how I do my hair, you know.
Critical things.
I even wore like this tank top with like a little bit of a higher neck on a training run, and it was so hot. So I was like, okay, don't wear like a tank top with a higher neck. So it's like tiny things that make a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I got more on that. I'll let you guys finish, then I'll talk about it. But yeah, no, that makes total sense. I mean, that's what training runs are meant for.
Yeah,
know?
so just doing runs that are long enough that you can figure all that stuff out.
Yeah, yeah. What about for you, Paul?
Well, I learned first. I was pretty impressed with CrossFit in general, which obviously isn't running, but the fact that we were able to go from zero running to running like a 17 mile training day with like 11-minute pace and then doing full marathon, I do think that speaks to the general preparedness that CrossFit gives you. I did learn that most people train for a marathon over like 6 months, so like 7 weeks wasn't quite long enough.
No.
So injuries did pop up due to the volume I think we were pushing, because I went from like 3 to 6 to 9, then 12, 14, 18, and 18
and
was
you
the
weren't
bad part.
Yeah, and you weren't hiking. You were legit running. So I mean, obviously, running compared to hiking, that's 3-4 times as much impact as what hiking would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so obviously it has little injuries pop up here and there. So I guess going back, I would. One, CrossFit was cool because it got us there, but also realize that it is something different. So just because you can go do that doesn't mean your body's going to hold up doing it for too long.
Big time. What about you, Kai?
Okay, well, Kynsi stole my first one, and you stole my second one. So we're all in agreement. The details matter, and CrossFit is awesome.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I don't know why I just
Are you crying?
Yeah. She was
had a
sad.
frog in my throat.
She was crying because you took her answers.
Yeah, I'm so sad.
Yeah.
No, for me, I guess for training wise was just to keep pushing through. Like it was miserable for me for the entire time for various reasons, but I just kept showing up and kept doing it, and it turned out great. So
Yeah.
sometimes it sucks, but
Well,
it's worth it.
You took my point. So no, but just to feed off of that, and I think like, that's what made me think about with Kynsi is that it's like I think this could relate a lot to like what people struggle with is they stop when it gets really hard. And that's not the point. The point is like most of my training days were just awful. They were miserable, especially once we got into the 17 and 20. I mean, if you guys weren't there for the 20, but Kynsi was, and by like mile 8, my IT bands both locked up so hard. And so I literally from like 13 to 20, I was walking. I was just walking. I would try to run for a minute or so and it would just seize up again. And, that was hard, right? That was a point where I was like thinking, why am I doing this? And I think so many people, get to that point, but they don't stick it through. And I think like that's the whole point of training is you're not supposed to be perfect in training. Like obviously you want to shoot towards perfect. But I mean, even looking at like Paul, like you were smoking it on these runs. Like I was like, how's this guy doing all this? You know what I mean? Like you said, it's kind of those things where, you get to that peak, and that's the whole point of training for something is you got to peak at the right moment so you're fresh, that sort of thing, right? And as you sort of kept progressing, then there were some things that sort of, came on, but it was better then than 1 week before the race, or right before the race. So it's like you're meant to have things that, you struggle through. But again, like then that makes race day, you're just like, all right, I figured out my hydration, figured out my nutrition, my running, my recovery, kind of all that stuff. So yeah, good answers. As far as we'll kind of just stick in the running piece, but I think this can kind of relate to all of CrossFit or all of fitness is I'll start with you, Paul. What were your like important pieces of nutrition and recovery? What were some things that you were just like, this is my jam every single week that promoted not only your running, but maybe stuff in the gym as well?
That's a great question. Recovery didn't start until after I got hurt. So that's when I started doing rehab stuff, I guess more so rehab because I had to, for IT band and calves and things that were bothering the knees.
Yeah.
That did make a big difference. Obviously, I've carried that now after the race into prep for the next one, and you try to keep the injuries away.
Both you guys were foam rolling when we came in.
Yeah, pretty
Listening
cool.
to some weird music. I don't know what it was called.
Yeah, so
It's known as country music.
Oh, cow music. Gotcha.
does it taste weird in your mouth saying country?
It
music?
does, yeah.
Country.
Just feels weird coming out.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's fine.
I prefer not to.
Training wise, I do wish. This is hard. I feel like as a more strength based athlete that still keeping that part is very important for me because I know I'll never be the fastest runner, but if I can be the fastest strong runner, then I'll feel pretty good. So I did drift a good bit away from like heavy squats and deadlifting and things, and I do feel that if I'd kept more heavy lunging and stuff in there, it might actually help my running feel a bit better. Because I have a lot more mass to move, so I think being stronger in general is going to help me move more mass than I guess your typical, like, you know, the guys that were winning the races obviously were considerably different builds. So I hope to keep more strength training going forward.
And then as far as nutrition, did you see a huge shift in your nutrition? Did you see anything that maybe hindered you or benefited you?
Not really. I mean, we burned a lot of calories doing the trail runs, but I always make up for those in the days we did them. I'd keep my nutrition the same the other days. It was just the big trail runs I'd eat more, which maybe I guess I could have eaten more the days leading into the trail runs, but I never really felt terrible on the training runs. It was really, most of those days I felt pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. What about you, Kins? What were your biggest pieces? Nutrition, recovery?
So recovery was, I think like some of the shorter runs, I had like super tight like hamstrings, so and super weak glutes, and so I did lacrosse balls on like my hamstrings and calves. I had like a little bit of like plantar fasciitis, I think, so I rolled out my calves like every day, and then would just do like mobility, just a lot of stretching, like a ton of stretching, because that I found helped a lot. So I would try to do that like during the week, and that helped a lot. I think like just loosening up kind of helped the like cramping and stuff on the runs. So that was what I did for like recovery. Used a lot of CBD.
Classic.
CBD on a lot.
Yeah.
Mostly before or after the runs, I'd put it on spots that like kind of hurt or spots I knew might like flare up, and it seemed to help pretty well. And then as far as nutrition, like nothing crazy, just I think like the night before and the night after I would make sure I ate like a lot, but during the week it was pretty much the same. I know we decreased our eating out, which was
Big
good.
time. Well, depends. Post-training runs.
At least like around the runs we like try not to eat out for like the whole training, and I think that probably helped, but like nothing crazy. The salt was probably the most different thing, was like taking electrolytes and salt a lot.
Big time. What about you, Kai? Recovery-wise, nutrition-wise?
Yeah, nutrition-wise, I would say, didn't really change a lot. Maybe ate more carbs like the night before and the night of, like big training runs. Nothing super significant. The biggest thing for me was just hydration, because there was a few runs where I didn't really pay attention to my hydration like the day before. And then I felt like super sluggish and just tired and not good. And then I started really paying attention to my hydration the day before, and also taking salt the night before and the morning of before a training run. And that made a huge difference. So that was definitely the biggest thing for me. And then as far as recovery, definitely foam rolling, stretching, all the typical stuff I tried to do pretty regularly.
Yeah. And knowing you with your calves especially, did you feel, because you prioritize the recovery, do you feel like that prolonged any sort of tightness, or was it pretty much like a Band-Aid, like as soon as you sweat it fell off type thing.
Yeah, my calves, for people who don't know, I had compartment syndrome. So it did not matter what I did. I saw Dr. or Dr. Riley, Riley, and he did like needling on my calves and a lot of work on my calves and stuff. And it
broke the needle.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, they were so intense. No, shout out to Dr. Riley. He did help me with a lot of different things. Unfortunately, my calves, like, just nothing helped. It didn't matter what I did, stretching, foam rolling. It just was what it was.
Gotcha.
So unfortunately, in that aspect, there was nothing I could do.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, and it's like one of those things where, you can only do so much, like even IT band stuff. You just hope and pray that when it comes time to run that it feels good, So I'd agree with all of yours. Like nutrition wise, I think I would eat a little bit cleaner before the race, or before the runs. After the runs, I didn't really care because I was like, my body's going to take whatever. So like we'd eat pizza or hamburgers, or I felt less guilty eating out because I was like, dude, I just burnt 3,000 calories. Like, come on. But the biggest thing I noticed was sleep. Like, I'm not going to say I don't have a very good sleep schedule, but I've noticed a lot more my performance decrease if I didn't have a good night's rest, or maybe I went to bed late or something of that sort. I noticed a huge difference. So sleep was definitely a priority. I mean, especially if we ran on a Saturday night, like what are most people doing on a Friday nights? You're staying up, watching movies. We don't eat popcorn, but people typically eat popcorn, But I mean, we were in bed by 9 o'clock, on Saturday nights, in bed by 9, that sort of thing. Even after our member appreciation party, we went to bed pretty late, and we didn't start our run until noon, I think. And it was just because we were so tired, and even our run was just super, super sluggish. So, I think sleep in general, I think a lot of people overlook, but now seeing how much exercise that we were doing and how the sleep could affect that was definitely something I took from that. Were there any breaking points in the run? It was an 8-hour run, 6.5?
6:34.
6:34. I mean, and the breaking point's all relative, right? Like for me, I think it was that last climb after the second to last aid station where, I thought we were cutting out a lot of it, and we ran down on the way in, and you're still hyped up, but it's still very early in the marathon, so you're not really thinking about it. But it was sunny out. We were just climbing. There was this random dude who wanted to have a full-on conversation with me, and I was like, dude, I cannot do this right now.
I don't know how he had so much energy.
I don't know.
He was so talkative.
And he was training for I think he was training for the 50 or something. He's like, yeah, I'm doing this as a training run. I'm like, dude, you're at the back of the pack.
Yeah, we're last.
Yeah, come on, dude. Come on, what's going on? But
means he's probably pacing his 50 just about right.
He's probably pacing his 50, but I was like, dude, this is the wrong race. But that was it, it's because I knew how steep it was coming down. So I was like, we got to go back up. And that was sort of my breaking point. And at that point, we're at 20 miles, and that was the longest that I had run or run-ish. And it was hard, Obviously, we got through it, and then once you start going downhill, then you're like, there's another climb, and at that point, you're just fed up. You're just like, whatever, I'll just get up. So I mean, I'll start with you, Kai. Was there any point? I actually know your point, but I'll have you share it. Was there what was the point that you're just like, the hell am I doing?
Yeah, I think there was a couple minor moments throughout where I was just grumpy about being there. So one was climbing the pass to begin with. I was just like, this is dumb. Whose idea was this? Why are we here? What is this? It just went on forever. And it seemed like every switchback you would get to, and then you'd be like, oh, there's the top. And then it was like, nope, there's another switchback. So I was just irritated. Not a breaking point. I wasn't thinking about quitting or anything, but second point was right at the top of the pass when I turned around to come down, and my knees were done at that point. My knees were both so angry. My IT bands were locked up, and it just hurt. Every step was just so painful on my knees. So I didn't again, didn't think about quitting at that point, but I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get down this mountain. Like, this hurts. And I think you and I were in the same boat at that point. We stopped at one point and Manny like massaged my quads trying to like get them to loosen up. And then again, just grumpy about the incline at the end. But by that point, I actually felt pretty good at that point. So I wasn't like upset or anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Low points, interesting. I didn't have too many because, like, well, she knows I'm not really like an emotional person, so I don't have a lot of emotions.
He doesn't have emotions.
Yeah,
me.
Paul is very happy right now.
Yeah, so it's very just the work was there, but like tough times for sure. At the top of the pass, I would agree, getting there was terrible, and by then I had started having the cramps I was having, so it was just like disappointing kind of, because like, oh, I want to finish this, but now I can't perform the way I was hoping, so it was kind of a low point getting to the pass. And when I turned around, I was like, oh, sweet, I'm going to be able to run down. And then your body was like, funny.
Yeah.
And so that didn't happen. So that was a little bit disappointing. You're trying to like run down and make up time, but you can't make up time. And then, of course, Manny talked about what was it, 20 to 22?
Somewhere in there.
That was like everyone's
so steep.
low point. Like, I remember seeing some guy like just standing there staring at the ground. Like, not he wasn't moving. He was just standing there with his hands on the hips, just for a solid like 30 seconds. I was coming behind him, and so like stopped, like put my hand on his back. He's like, "You're all right." He's like, "Yeah." And so all he said, he stared at me, and I was like, "Well, let's keep moving, man. Come on, one foot in front of the other." And then he started moving again, but I don't know. He was hurting for sure. But
Yeah.
I think everyone on that stretch that I saw was for sure hating life.
Yeah. There was one guy that we passed that just like sat down on the side of the trail.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah, it was that guy that followed us.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was. And I was like, I thought you were dead.
Yeah. So that was like a low point. Emotion, I felt low, but I was able to focus on some things that pulled me out of it and kept on moving. So.
Kynsi?
Um,
I think there's a comment thread going. But
Yeah, mine are kind of similar to Kylie's. Like, there were different points when I felt like different emotions. So definitely, prior to this race, I rolled my ankle like the week before, and the whole week I was just like in denial that I had done that and that that it still hurt. And I was like, no, it's fine. But then like mile 6, it started to really hurt. Like 6 to 10. Started to really hurt. So I just had to like overcome like what I was saying about like this is what it is today. Like, this is how I feel today. So we're just going to do this regardless. So that, even though I was like super fresh everywhere else, like my foot hurt pretty bad. So that was kind of like a low point from like mile 6 to 10. But as soon as we started climbing, we climbed the pass and it was like extremely hard. And then once we came down, like everything hurt. So my foot pain was fine because like everything was in pain. So it actually like, and my foot never got worse after the race. So like I was never like in a ton of pain after that. I think it was just kind of warming it up. It didn't feel great. And then, yeah, I like the climb at mile 20. By that point, like my emotions were everywhere. I think I took all of Paul's emotions. And I just like couldn't stop crying because like you just like can't hold anything in. But like it was weird because I was never like mad or irritated or anything. Like I just needed to cry. Like I just needed to like release everything. But it was fine. Like I knew we were going to finish it, and like there was really nothing to complain about at that point. Like I think we were just kind of on autopilot and just like going. So I didn't know what to feel, even though like it looked like I was like so sad. But I think I was just like thinking about how happy I was going to be when I'd finish, and then that made me cry. So that was just like a whirlwind of emotions, but it wasn't necessarily a low point.
yeah.
You know, it was all just an experience for sure.
Well, and it was common, you know. I mean, we weren't really at the finish line for that long, right? Because we were sort of at the back of the end. And I don't know if you paid attention to people, but there's quite a bit of people who were very
just
emotional,
cry,
you know,
yeah.
because it was, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's the hardest or the highest marathon, you know, just that in of itself. Like, I personally didn't realize how significant it was to a lot of people, you know what I mean? And then I know for, you know, your brother, like there was a point where he was literally in a wheelchair from a dirt bike accident, you know what I mean? So there's stories like that we don't really know of and that we're aware of. So, you know, for us to get emotional for it, obviously is acceptable, but it's normal, right? I mean, it was a tough thing. Yeah, I guess my last question, and I'll start with you, Kylie, is: are you going to do it again? Are you going to do the Leadville Marathon?
Don't start with me.
In 2023.
That's a funny question because as I was climbing that pass, I was just like, who would ever do this more than once? Like, what kind of crazy person would ever want to do this again?
Yeah.
And then even at the end, I was like,
Nope.
I'm good. I've done it once. I don't ever have to do that again. And then literally the morning of, I was like, I could probably do it again.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
So,
and Tucker
yeah.
warned us about that. He's
Yeah.
like, do you want to do another one? I was like, no. Like that night, I was like, no way. And he's
Right.
like, dude, he's like,
Just wait.
running-
He was like,
Yeah.
just wait a week.
Yeah,
or
he's
something.
like these
Yeah.
things have a weird thing like to like that tricks you into doing it. I know.
And I think just in general, like we're all like fairly competitive and like we're always kind of striving for that next
Yeah.
goal. So I think it's probably the same for all of us is like, well, I could do better next time.
Big time.
I could do it again and do better, or
Big time.
maybe I could try another one
Yeah.
or something of that nature. I think we're
Yeah.
all kind of have that same mindset.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the beauty of CrossFit. And I think that's why there's people who can successfully do CrossFit for 20, 30, 40 years because there's always improvements. You know what I mean? So like we could run it next year and Paul could go 6 and we could go 7. Then we could do it next year and you're like just always trying to get like, it's almost like a drug, right? We're like trying to get that next fix or whatever. So yeah, I agree with that. I already know you're signed up for it. So, and Paul,
You signed up for next year?
Yeah, I left a post-it note
Yeah.
with the owners, whatever. Saying,
he said, charge my card
yeah,
on
charge
file.
my card on file.
Yeah.
Put it on auto renew every year.
For the record, so there's a lottery system Paul was trying to get into for the Leadville 100. Unsuccessful, sorry. So next year you just got to qualify.
Yeah, you guys
time-wise.
got to be top 3.
You just got to be top 3.
Top
so,
No big
three
deal.
qualifying.
yeah.
I could probably cut my time in half.
Yeah, I think so.
No problem.
You have a year to do it, so yeah, that's no big deal. No, not for you, dude. Not for you. Kynsi?
Well, I signed up for this because all you guys were doing it. So if you all do it next year, I'll also sign up for it.
She's not normally into peer pressure, for the record.
No, but yeah, I think at first I was not sold. Like when we were doing like our 7 and 9 mile runs, I was like, I don't want to do this. This is dumb. And then like actually loved the 17 and 20 mile run. And then just like, yeah, I think just accomplishing like something that like I never thought I would accomplish is like really cool. And it was really cool like doing it with all of you guys. So yeah. I like experiences like that.
Yeah.
So I do it again.
Yeah. I'd kind of agree, and it really was weird because like Saturday night I was like, this is dumb. I'm never gonna do this ever.
We were
again.
like all crippled.
Yeah, like all,
couldn't even
and then even like
move.
Sunday, and then even like Sunday morning, we were all walking kind of stiff. But
Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
It was so bad.
How'd you
Yeah.
guys feel on Sunday night? Did you guys feel better Sunday night or no? That's what was weird, and I don't know. I don't really know, but like by Monday morning, I was tight, right? Like I was sore, but like it was fine. She came and worked out on Monday, you know, and
Monday
it was
night.
Monday night, and
Yeah.
it was deadlifts, you know. So like it's really weird. I think like in the moment. Oh shoot, our camera turned off. I think like in the moment.
Can you still hear us?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. This is separate than the camera.
Goodbye.
So the video podcast is done, but
Oh.
yeah. So I think like, you know, in the moment it's like pain, and it's like I don't think I ever want to do this again. But then once you kind of step away, it's just like our first CrossFit comp, right? It's same exact sort of feel. So I'm probably gonna do it again for sure. And it'll just give us a little bit more time to train for it. And like now we know like, all right, our IT bands are probably gonna lock up in the heavier miles. So like what prehab stuff can we do for that, you know, and like talk about more about that leg strength. Like just even my ankle felt great, but like now it's kind of getting away. And I think even just the running was really, really fun, and just getting out, and like it made us get out on Saturdays and run when it would be nice just to come to the gym and just be like, oh, well, I got to clean at home or do this or the other. So, you know, it was nice. And I did forget how nice it is to have like a training program. So next year we'll have this conversation again.
We're going to call our times for next year, put on the record.
Oh my gosh. 8 hours. Just kidding.
8:09.
So-
I'm gonna
No.
shave off.
No, sub 8. You just got to go sub 8 and then you PR. What do you want to get?
Pretty confident I get sub 5:30.
I think
Oh,
so.
nice. That's a good.
I think so. Yeah. What about you, Kai?
I'd say sub 7.
Sub 7, Kins?
Yeah. 7 exactly.
7 exactly. Not too much.
6:59.
6:59, perfect. Yeah, I'd probably go from the 6 to 7 range. You know, it really just depends if I have a good day or not. But yeah,
Yep.
I could see me getting in like that 6:30 time
Yeah.
frame. Like I felt good, and I mean the climbing. Like I felt like I was strong at climbing, so it's just like putting it all together. So. You heard it here first. Well, cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for doing this. I am really proud of all 3 of you. You guys did awesome. It was really, really hard, and it's just cool to do really cool things with cool people, you know, or really hard things, I should say, with cool people. You know, it just kind of it's those battle wounds that now we all have, you know, and then we'll just keep going back to it like a drug addict. So
Yeah.
awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.